Welcome to Marathon Meeples' top replayable games in our collection, 10 to 1. If you want to check out the rest of the list, make sure to hit the subscribe button and see all our other videos.
So we're finally towards the end here.
Woo.
Taking a while, but we're down to the final 10. Number
10 is Rococo. Whether you have the new edition or the old edition, the gameplay is the same.
Yeah, you prefer the old art, I think.
I do. I love the old kind of regal burgundies and golds over the pinks and lime greens.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I traded out the old one when it went out of print, which is I want to do. So I find the replayability in Rococo comes from the different cards, which you're hiring basically different workers the entire time. You're always going to be hiring from the same deck, but each worker can drastically change what you're doing. They'll just give you discounts on the different kinds of fabric, or you can buy things cheaper. So I find that they're going to really dictate what your strategy is going to be.
Yeah, and then also the types of tiles that come out, the dresses that are available at the time you're trying to purchase. All of that is variable, so there's a lot of setup elements that change and kind of, even though they're not going to drastically change how you play the game, they might tweak what you're doing or what statues you buy, the rooms you go in for different bonuses.
The one nice thing that does come with the deluxe does come with like the one expansion, the jewelry expansion you had to buy separately before. So that adds in a separate board and some more of those workers that you can hire. Number 9 is Mage Knight. I don't have the expansion. They've come out with a big box expansion. I've played this thing like 30, 40 times. And let me tell you, that's a big time investment because it takes 3-4 hours to play this thing. In Mage Knight, you are a knight. You can either plunder, you can be on the side of good. You're basically playing a number of rounds to get to an end game where you're trying to take over these towers. But in this game, you're fighting monsters along the way. The monsters will change up depending on how early you want to fight them. And then you're going to get these power cards in your hands that are really going to like almost let you like jump ahead and do certain things. The game is always changing. It's always engaging. Of any game I've ever played, this game has that feeling of I don't know where the couple hours went. So when I'm in this thing, I'm in the pocket. So I love that. I've never taught this to you.
He will not allow me into this game. It's a 1 to 4 player game. It may be fabulous at higher player counts, but this is Matthias's solo game.
Yeah, I think some people play this multiplayer, but that's not just a me thing. I think pretty much everybody plays it solo. So
leave a note in the comments if you play this multiplayer. Coming in at number 8 is 5 Tribes. Now this one has been in our collection since 2014?
15? I don't know.
15?
Pretty early.
Really early. And we played it so many times. At the time our collection was about 4-5 games. So we didn't have a lot of variety. This game kept coming out, and what I love about it is the variability of where you place the meeples, because it's going to change the game every time you set it.
Yeah, I think just inherently the board state always changes the game and how you put the meeples out. There's lots of set collection. You can like snipe the other player's meeples. There's a lot going for this game in terms of the variability. Yeah, and it's fun. So I feel that like Days of Wonder does a really good job in terms of having a lot of replayable games. At the top of our list, we had Heat, and we have 5 Tribes here. I think they do a very good job of like this games. This is almost like back when you used to buy board games. You'd have this in your collection, Catan, a bunch of other ones, but you knew that like I'm gonna play this game 50 times. And I think you can do that with 5 Tribes. I would recommend getting the one expansion. I forget the name of it. It's the first expansion where you're basically going around dead tiles and you can move around. It adds a different color.
And it has little cliffs or something, mountains that you can't go around.
Yeah, so I almost feel like you want that expansion.
Yes.
So if you are going to buy 5 Tribes, budget the extra $20 for the expansion. But once you have those two together, you can just play it whenever you want. Number 7 is Azul. I think you put this higher than I did.
Yes.
Azul, I like Azul a lot. Like the first time I played it, I assumed it was not so much a hobby board game because it was super well produced, the chunky bits. I was like, okay, let's see what's going on here. It looked abstracty. It is abstracty, but there's a great puzzle in here. You can play this a number of times. I think from a replayability standpoint, I'm sure this is kind of like, as I was talking about with 5 Tribes before, you can have this game in your collection if you play with your family, you have a family game that you play this 100 times.
Oh yeah, and what I love is the fact that right in the box, they gave you an A side and a B side. The A side kind of helps structure what you're doing, gives you guidelines. Once you get amazing at that, you can flip it over and have a little more freedom.
Yeah, and you're always paying attention to what other people are doing, because you like, if I don't want to get stuck with these tiles, I don't want at the end and get my negative points. So it's a game that is interactive. You're looking at what other people are taking. You're trying to get ahead of it. And there's just a lot going on. It's easy to set up. You know, it's a bag of bits, basically.
And there's not a lot of downtime.
No.
And I think that's kind of another thing to keep it going at game night. You're not going to have dead air where you're just waiting for people to take their turns. Coming in at number 6 is Patchwork. So, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Most of you probably know what Patchwork is. Quick 2-player game. You can launch it on the table in under 2 minutes and start a game and be done within 15, and it travels nice.
Yeah, we've played it over 75 times, like the actual copy. We have the app, we've played that. It's easy to set up, and you're right, it's easy to take places and travel with. We usually take a few board games whenever we're going someplace, and this almost always makes its way in there, because
Yes.
we know we can play a couple of games. You don't have to pay that much attention when you're playing. It's light, but I think that's part of the joy in it, so I can just kind of like play it and just relax. It's not like I'm going down some crazy campaign mode on my vacation. Number 5 is Terraforming Mars. In Terraforming Mars, you're terraforming Mars. There's just so many cards in here. Prelude expansion, I feel, is almost a must because it helps move things along, but Terraforming Mars, it's a classic for a reason. I think it's a top 10 BGG all time. Even though if I'm trying to cycle through the deck and play a certain strategy, there's so many different things that I want to try. There's so many cards. Everything works. I can play it a number of times at any player count. I think from 4 even to solo. They are all great.
And it really changes based on who you're playing with, because the Terraforming Mars aspect of the game is done together. So somebody can race certain elements, people can slow play, so it can also change the dynamic based on who you're playing with.
Yeah, that's the one thing. We have a few games coming up that I feel could fall into that. Just watch out. If you're playing this, please don't get every point. You don't have to get every single point, because that can drag sometimes.
Yes, analysis paralysis can affect you when playing Terraforming Mars.
For sure, because there's so many different computations you can make and think 3 turns ahead, but sometimes it's good to, play this for 2 hours. Let's not play it for 4.
Coming in at number 4 is Ticket to Ride. As you can tell, it's in my hand. It's another one of my family favorites. For a long time, all we had in our collection was Catan and Ticket to Ride. So I love what they did with the system, though. The fact that it's not just one game. You can buy all of the different maps. If you're a geography buff, you might have fun with that, but every map includes something new.
Yeah, no, I like the map expansion, and you're right. I think it's a system you can play. You can just buy the baseboards, and I think you're still, oh my gosh, you've probably played this hundreds of times.
Yes, before ever getting an expansion.
I like Ticket to Ride. I don't love it, but I do find that when we have enough of the map packs, I will play it more because it just adds that much more variety to it. And I also think you hit on something that's great too, is like, it's cool if you've traveled to a place and you're like, okay, that's on the map, I remember that. It just kind of brings that back. There's different countries. If you've traveled internationally, you can get different map packs. So it's another system that is always, I feel, going to be supported to one level or another. And it doesn't really overstay its welcome, even though like a 4-player game's like an hour and a bit. It's not that long.
No, and it's light enough that you can carry on some conversations while you're playing.
Yeah.
Kind of like an after-dinner game, great with friends. And what I love about the expansion packs is the fact that they don't make you buy everything. You use the same trains, you use the same train cards, so you do need that base game, but the beauty of it is it makes the expansion packs a lot cheaper and a lot smaller.
Number 3 is Ark Nova. This is very similar to my comments on Terraforming Mars, that there are just so many different cards and so many different ways you can build out. This one, I find it's more fun than Terraforming Mars to me, just because I'd rather build out a zoo with all my cool little creatures than, put down these city tiles or these water tiles that you're doing over in Terraforming Mars. But in this one, money is tighter at times, especially at the start of the game, where you have to kind of really strategize out what you want to do. But, everything's great. Like, the art is great. The game flow is great. I like just kind of moving your cards up and down and trying to, like, plan ahead for a couple of turns where, like, I can have a better action if I just hold off right now or if I do a couple other things to optimize. So in terms of everything here, this is like you could play this 50, 100 times.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair to say. And who doesn't want to consider planning out your zoo and having potentially a petting zoo or other types of buildings? So Matthias nailed it when he said sometimes you have to wait to maximize and build the best zoo you can.
Yeah, they're coming out with an expansion. I don't know if it needs it, but obviously this game's been so popular that I'm sure a lot of people add it. I assume we'll add it.
And I assume if you played it a lot, maybe you need that expansion. We have played it a number of times, but we haven't capped out at that. We've tried every strategy that we can think of and are ready for more.
Yeah, I think if you buy this, it's nice to see that the system's getting supported in the future, but you could just buy this box and you're still playing it 5 years from now.
Oh, absolutely. Coming in at number 2, Grand Austria Hotel. This is a dice drafting game where your actions are going to be drastically controlled by the dice that are rolled at the beginning of every round. And I find that between the cards and the dice, you're never playing the same game.
Yeah, I'm always changing it up. It's very tactical. I can't really go in with a strategy. You have a bunch of objectives you have to match every game, or at least you're trying to. You have different tracks you're trying to go up, but your guests and what they want, and then the dice that come out, you're always going to play it a little bit differently. So we've played this thing 50 times, and I still feel like we can play it 50 more. There is the expansion coming out. We don't have it. We missed the pre-order, and it really hasn't been in stock for like a year.
Yes.
So I think we will try the expansion, but from what I'm hearing, people say it's great, but you don't have to have it. So this is another one of those games where you buy it, you're basically locking in 50 plays. And number 1 is Spirit Island. We have an expansion for Spirit Island. I haven't even opened it.
We've had it for 2 years.
Yeah, now they're coming out with different versions of Spirit Island. I don't have the new version, which is supposedly improves upon this base game, but even just this base game right here, it comes with so many different spirit characters. It comes with so many different villains with levels that you have to fight against them. There's so many different cards. The cards could maybe get a little bit older, but when you're playing against different villains with the different spirits, you're always kind of like going through the same kind of gameplay loop, but you're playing it completely differently every time based on what you're doing. There's just so much variety in here.
And depending on what spirits you use together, so that combination, based on the different player counts, I shouldn't say I stink at it. And the number of blights we get, man oh man, but I think that's half of the beauty of this game is it's a challenge. So you are really thinking at what you're doing because it's not easy. You may say in the comments below that you've beaten everything. That's not us. But it's a solid game.
Oh yeah, it's a great game. It plays well. I've never played this past 2. I don't think I'd want to, but solo it's great, and at 2 it's great, and just, there's so much variety in the box, and from what I hear, all the additional expansions, which, can vary in cost, add quite a bit more gameplay as well. So this is another one of these games where you have a great system, but even if you just buy this box, this is another, 50 game box. So I think everything that we've covered here, we've played upwards, even our least played game here is probably like 25 games, but you can definitely get up to 50, 100 games on pretty much anything in this top 10 here.
Absolutely. And they're all games that we love and have been tried and tested, especially at that 2-player count. So if you're wondering if these are games that you could just play with 2 people, absolutely. We would love to hear all about the games that you find most replayable in your collection. Let us know if any of them match ours and introduce us to some new ones.